And we're live apparently. There we go. I thought this wasn't boding well. I was seeing funny sort of little connection symbols and stuff down in the bottom there. But just popping on a little bit early to check if everything's working okay as usual. Excuse me. Well, there's my wee green working. Tell me on audio. So if anybody's joining me, my name's Doc Sloan. Thanks very much for joining me on my little science fiction station. We're going to be looking at chapter 7 of our Dune Messiah book club again tonight. So we'll just wait for 9 o'clock to see if we get a few people arriving for the program's supposed to start. And I must have a wee chat about something I saw on the news. Actually, that I found was quite interesting. Let me see. There's Telios Dawes saying, "Evening, Doc. Evening, Babs. How you doing?" And Carlos Caselli saying, "Hey, Doc. Hey, Carlos. How are you? Thanks very much for joining me." I must catch up with comments as well, folks. So I know a few of you have sent me some wee comments, and I tend to fall behind a wee bit with them, but I will catch up with them. So yeah, hope you guys are keeping well. Just before we start, I have a couple of wee bits of housekeeping actually. Not really, just something of interest, I suppose. Let me just see if I can find this. Excuse me. Just a little local news story here. Quite an interesting one, as probably as usual. It's probably disappeared. Let me see. It was to do with Balachi. Here we go. Let me see. I'll just copy the link for you, paste it in. There we go. That's a wee story off the BBC about a Balachi bog body that's been found here, local to here. Human remains are 2,000 years old. And the discovery has been made after archaeologists were alerted to human bones in Balachi peatland in County Londonderry in October 23. If anybody wants to read the article there, for those of you who don't know, sort of Balachi is Seamus Heaney's country, if you like. And the reason why it's of interest, I don't know if anybody's into Seamus Heaney or likes his poetry, but in particular his poems to do with the north of Ireland. He's a lot of stuff to do with bog bodies, which is quite interesting. And it kind of looks back at these ancient, excuse me, usually these ancient, I suppose, figures who have probably died through ritualistic murder. He used to compare that. That used to be one of his things, that would compare these bodies to the people who were murdered in the Troubles. So just from a literary point of view and an archaeological point of view, I suppose, it's interesting to find another bog body. And I think we have most of the skeleton except possibly the head with this one. But I was just thought that's kind of interesting, and very interesting, in fact, that's just found, around where Seamus Heaney's from. And I actually think the Seamus Heaney Centre is in Balachi, for anybody who's ever doing their Northern Irish tourism, you know. So something of note. And then I suppose let me have a wee look at something else of slight clandestine nature. Let me see if I've saved a file somewhere. I thought I might share it, but I was kind of figuring out where I've put it. So bear with me a wee second. This PC. It's just a wee text file that I'm looking for. Sorry, I know, just creating dead air here. Bear with me one wee second, folks, just if I can see this. Aha, found it. Right. So, for academic purposes, I suppose, guys, if anybody's got a little sort of notepad file and wants to sort of open it for a bit of copying and pasting, I've got some URLs here for you. And let me see. I'll give you the first one just to see how much. If we can do these. Let me see. That's our first one. I'm just wondering, does that work? It does. Okay. What we've got here is a collection of links to audio recordings of Frank Herbert. So for anybody wanting to do a bit of reading, let me see. Quite a few of these actually, but I'll kind of give you the first couple and explain. Yes, there we go. So that's the first two. This is a collection of 21, audio interviews with Frank Herbert. Let me see there. Frank Herbert audio archive destination file URLs for direct download. Once you get there, right click and save audio as. So the first two there, if you look at the file names, it's T at the very end there, T01_A access, T01_B access. Basically, the rest of the files where you'd be changing those numbers 01 to 02 for an A and B. Well, I suppose I'll show you what I mean actually, but let's see. Well, hang on. There's the next one. I'll give you one more. I'll see if I can maybe pop these in the rest of these later. So I'm giving you the first four here. But they basically, how do I put this? They follow a particular naming style. There we go. So that's the first four of those. And there's 21 altogether. So if you can see, we're at the end of that, it kind of goes a string of zeros, 1_T01_A. The thing that changes with these is the number becomes number 2. And you have a version of 2A and B, you have a 3A and B, a 4A and B, etc., etc. And I'll try and paste some of these up here, but basically, this is off that Internet Archive, and it's pointed out to me rather that they're for I made available, I think, for academic use, etc. But they're really only streaming. So it's been pointed out to me that if you actually look at the URL of the site, that you can figure out where the actual files are. So that's the nomenclature for the files. And if you change the 01, for example, there's two files that are 01 there, and then the next two will be 02, A and B, and the next two will be 03, A and B, etc. And if you go on like that, you should be able to download those yourself. And I've managed to get a copy, and it's got some interesting stuff in it worth listening to. And just to say, somebody pointed this to me, and I kind of explained to me that about how you pronounce, or how I've been pronouncing who I'll call Huai Nori, but is actually Hui Nori. That's on one of these here. It's actually very funny. And how do you pronounce it? The answer is like Hui, according to Frank Herbert. So it's Hui Nori, if you like, and you can hear him. You can hear Frank sort of explaining that. It's very funny. So if that doesn't make any sense, but I'll give you the first four, and I'll try and copy and paste the rest of them into perhaps the audio description if it allows me. Or sorry, on the text description of the page. But there's 21 in all, I think. And I believe, let me see, just in terms of what's there. I've got Dune audio. There's a bit of blurb on it, but I'll just explain. So there's, in terms of, I've kind of numbered them off. The first four will be parts 1 to 4, include interviews and conversations with Frank Herbert. So a bunch of them are interviews and conversations with Frank Herbert. It says parts 5, 6, 20, and 21 are lectures by Frank Herbert. Parts 7 to 14 include Herbert reading aloud with some interaction. and discussion from others. So I've got a whole bunch of these with the addresses, but it kind of would take us a wee while to paste them in. So I'll see if I can paste them in onto the sort of description of the video or on a comment afterwards. And if you want to be able to go and download them, hopefully, and have a listen at your own leisure. And I have to say, by the way, if you download these, they sound much better on something like VLC Media Player, something like a Windows Media Player. They just sound a lot better than they do streaming off online. So there you go. So I hope everybody's well. I'm sorry about not being able to get online last night. And I gather quite a lot of you have been experiencing some stormy weather. And we've had a bit here too. We've had some nice snow for a few days, then a bit of ice, and then lots of very, very blustery weather. We ended up with a bit of a leak in the roof once again. So just it's always something, isn't there? But I hope you're all keeping well, folks. So apologies for popping on a Friday, but we had the work done, kind of thing, and we thought we'd just sort of go with the next night. Once again, I've consumed a very large meal just before coming online, which I'm really starting to regret. I'm just trying to find time, I suppose, to eat, but it's not good eating loads before coming on here. I was having, before we get going, I was having a wee think about the previous chapter, and I was doing a few bits and doodles and stuff. I was thinking just about, I suppose, the positions of the different people within the reception room, if you like. And it was just about, I suppose I was doing a few wee things just to show you. I was having a doodle at the tarot card that we've got coming up here. But over here, I don't know if you can see that, it's kind of just like a wee sort of magnet, if you like. And at the very Mohiam being cast out. And I suppose it got me thinking a wee bit about Edric and his appearance and the fish, the idea of the fish appearance, I suppose. And it made me think about, I suppose, paintings like The Fall of the Rebel Angels, if you see what I mean. And things like The Garden of Earthly Delights, that kind of stuff. The closer to hell you get, the kind of more, I don't know, reptilian and fishy things tend to become. But I was just sort of thinking just in terms of that, just with Mohiam being sort of cast out of, we were talking about, I suppose, the idea of the Atreides, the representations of this room with water and light being a bit like a metaphysical realm. The other thing that occurred to me, I suppose, was I thought that the audience hall itself, with certainly the colors and the patterns that it made to me with the light coming into it, etc. I thought it felt a bit like a fish tank as well. And as much as we have kind of this tank that brings Edric in, it was almost like a tank within a tank, is the sense that I was getting from it, if you see what I mean. Pardon me. So it was just in terms of those kind of things. And having a bit of a doodle at a tarot card, because I don't know too much about those kind of things. There's Cynthia saying, hi, Doc. Hi, all. Hi, Cynthia. How's it going? Thanks very much for joining us. So, I suppose we haven't really started yet. So it's just me sort of pasting up a couple of links there to some audio stuff with Frank Herbert, and I'll try and paste it into a link on the video afterwards, I think, rather than me copying and pasting 21 links. But I was just sort of saying, if you have a look at them, you'd be just changing the number 01. So there'll be two videos with 01, an A and a B, and then that would go to 02, A and B, and so on and so forth, like that for most of them. But I thought it was a good wee resource to have a look at. Now, let's see, I suppose. Chapter 7 begins with quite a good epigraph. Truth suffers from too much analysis. And this one I would probably agree with. And that you can indeed overanalyze things sometimes. I love doing it, to be honest with you, but as much as I go way into things and find sometimes quite spurious connections, I do take some of them with a pinch of salt, if you see what I mean. But it's a good place to start, I think, for this chapter. Truth suffers from too much analysis. What we're going to see in this chapter is, I suppose, the interactions between the Bene Gesserit conspirators here, the Princess Irulan and the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam. And I suppose, almost interestingly enough, the setting here is going to be Mohiam's prison. It's going to kind of remind me of a fish tank, or a tank again, the cell that she's in. So, truth suffers from too much analysis, I suppose, in one way. Get the sense that there's two conversations going to be going on here between these two. And one is kind of an obvious, banal, passing the sort of time conversation that's meant to be scrutinized by the people who will be watching them. And the other one is basically a secret communication that's going to be done through, as we're told, a kind of finger language, a kind of sign language. So double meanings away here, I suppose. And it's an interesting position, I suppose, for the Reverend Mother to sort of begin. And it kind of almost reminds me of, how would I put it? The Reverend Mother in her box. It's almost as if she's been put inside her own box, if you see what I mean. So Irulan, it begins with Irulan. I suppose some of the tenses are a wee bit funny in this. Because again, we're sort of shifting back a little bit in time. We know from just the previous chapter that Gaius, Helen, and Mohiam has been seized by Paul. So we're going to see, I suppose, the results. We're going to get a bit of a flashback to look at that from Mohiam's point of view. And it's an interesting little chapter. This gives us a little bit of insight into Mohiam and into Irulan. And I suppose it confirms some of the things that we've been thinking. Well, I've been thinking certainly about Irulan. And I suppose it also, I think, would maybe make us look at the sisterhood in a slightly different light, this chapter. I'm not sure if you'd agree with me or not. The other thing, by the way, guys, is I have to give you a confession, by the way. Since last week, before we pile into this, how do I put this? I've usually been working at one chapter at a time with this, and sort of working at it as we read it. And I've done that with Dune all the way through, and I've been doing that with this all the way through. And to be honest with you, after and I like that. It's a good way of approaching the book, sort of looking at each chapter fresh, because it's been so long since I've been looking at it. But after reading the last chapter, I couldn't help myself. And I tore on. I'm sad to say. Well, not sad to say. I'm quite glad to say, to the point where I've nearly finished the book. And I figured I'll be reading it a couple of times anyway. So what the hell? But I've also picked up a couple of. Well, I suppose I knew a couple of books there. I've got myself another new book that I'd like to get into. But I've torn into Dune Messiah just from really enjoying it so much the other week. Not that I'll probably remember much, but I get my wee paperweight there, so I just plug that there. So yeah, couldn't help myself. Here we go. I think this is an interesting little chapter. We get some of the Bene Gesserit intrigue here, I think, and we're also starting to see it's different actors, for want of a better, are acting against each other. So it begins with Irulan saying, "Reverend Mother, I shuddered to see you in such circumstances." And we're told that she stood inside the cell door, measuring the various capacities of the room in her Bene Gesserit way. It was a 3-meter cube, carved with cutter rays from the veined brown rock beneath Paul's keep. For furnishings, it contained one flimsy basket chair, occupied now by the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam, a pallet with a brown cover upon which a deck of the new Dune tarot cards, a metered water tap above a reclamation basin, a Fremen privy with moisture seals. It was sparse, primitive, and yellow light came from anchored and caged glow globes at the 4 corners of the ceiling. I kind of had a wee doodle of it there, if you see what I mean, just down here. just to get a sense of the scene, if you like. And there's Rolando Sada saying, howdy, Rolando. How you doing? Hope you're keeping well. We're just getting started. So yes, this strange 3-meter cube. I always think of the cubes when as a prison with Judge Dredd. That's where you get sent to the Mega City one, isn't it? To the cubes. So Mohiam says, you've sent word to the Lady Jessica. And Irulan's response is, yes, but I don't expect her to lift one finger against her firstborn. Why would she, I suppose? And we're told that Irulan glanced at the cards. They spoke of the powerful turning their backs on supplicants. The card of the great worm lay beneath desolate sand. And I've questioned, that must be another card, I think. Patience was counselled, and Irulan's thoughts are, did one require the tarot to see this? I suppose, did one require the tarot to see that patience was counselled? That is what I got from that. We're told that a guard stood outside watching them through a metaglass window in the door, and that Irulan knew there'd be other monitors on this encounter. She had put in much thought and planning before daring to come here. To have stayed away carried its own perils, though. So I suppose there's a couple of things coming up about Irulan. I think and it's more to do with questions that we've asked about her in the past. I suppose that how well trained is she would be one. How good a Bene Gesserit is she? What are her abilities? Pardon me. Certainly, just from some of the things that we're used to seeing with the Bene Gesserit, a lot of the kind of prana bindu types things that would be associated with self-control and controlling your body language, this kind of thing, she doesn't seem to be particularly good at. But we've got a bit of intrigue here, I suppose. And that I suppose the point I wanted to make quickly before we get on with it is that it's good to look at Irulan here as both a Bene Gesserit and a princess. I think it's important, So, and basically they're under surveillance. And we're told that the Reverend Mother had been engaged in prana meditation interspersed with examinations of the tarot, despite a feeling that she would never leave Arrakis alive. She had achieved a measure of calm through this. One's oracular powers might be small, but muddy water was muddy water, and there was always the litany against fear. So I think it's interesting that they let her have this, as much as she's a prisoner, they let her have this tarot deck. And I'm wondering, I think it pretty much must be a sort of product of the Bene Gesserit. I'm not sure if anybody knows for certain. Cynthia says, if Paul suspects that there are other oracles clouding his vision, why does he allow Mohiam to have or use the Dune tarot intercessor? Sorry, Cynthia. Carlos Cosellia saying, I got the impression that, most Bene Gesserit, sorry, this old mouse of mine, it's rubbish, didn't think very highly of Irulan. In this chapter, yeah, I'd say that there's almost contempt for her from Mohiam, and I don't know, Gaius Mohiam, to me, he's always been a sort of favorite character. A really interesting character. It's quite menacing. I suppose we get a little bit more insight into her here. We're told that she had yet to assimilate the import of the actions which had precipitated her into this cell. Dark suspicions brooded in her mind, and the tarot hinted at confirmations. Was it possible the guild had planned this? So I've just put that she's actually got nothing concrete here. Dark suspicions brooded in her mind. Was it possible the guild had planned this? I suppose it is possible. Of course, with the idea that Edric seemed surprised in the previous chapter, but that doesn't really mean anything. And I thought she had yet to assimilate the import of the actions which had precipitated her into this cell. Again, I think that includes her own actions and the Bene Gesserit's actions. And it's just from, I suppose, from the end of Dune and those, I suppose, the appendix that looks into the Bene Gesserit motives, etc., not realizing their own part in the Araking disaster, if you like. How much has Mohiam's own actions put her right here, right now? And I think probably quite a lot. So we get a little bit of a flashback here, as much as we've been told what's happened to Mohiam. We're going to find out a little bit more of the details. We're just sort of going to explore the memory through her, I suppose. So we're told that a yellow-robed Quizara, head shaved for a turban, beady eyes of total blue, and a bland, round face, skin leathered by the wind on some of Arrakis, had waited her on the Highliner's reception bridge. He had looked up from a bulb of spiced coffee being served by an obsequious steward, studied her a moment, put down the coffee bulb. You're the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam. And I think this is nice the way Frank does this. To replay those words in her mind was to bring that moment alive in the memory, and it brings it alive for us too. Her throat had constricted with an unmanageable spasm of fear. That says a lot, doesn't it? Really, for Mohiam, I think. You think hers again probably has enormous self-control. Unmanageable spasm of fear. That's a lot of fear for her. And of course, Mohiam's in a trap here, isn't she? How had one of the Emperor's minions learned of her presence on the Highliner, she wondered. And the Quizara says, it came to our attention that you were aboard. Have you forgotten that you're denied permission to set foot on the holy planet? Sorry about that. Mohiam says, I'm not on Arrakis. I'm a passenger on a guild Highliner in free space. There is no such thing as free space, madam, says the Quizara. Mohiam, we're told, read the hate mingled with profound suspicion in his tone. Quizara says, Muad'Dib rules everywhere. Mohiam says that Arrakis is not my destination, she insisted. The Quizara, Arrakis is the destination of everyone. An absolute sort of thing. Yeah, he's got kind of this religious banter about him, hasn't he? I wouldn't call it banter. Religious patter. She feared for a moment, we're told, that he would launch into a recital of the mystical itinerary which pilgrims followed. This very ship had carried thousands of them. And I think that's kind of funny, that almost as much as that there's real fear for Mohiam here. Within her own mind, she just hopes he doesn't go into some of his religious nonsense. That might be a bit much. I think it's an attempt by her to lighten the mood, I suppose, in her own mind. But we're told, but the Quizara had pulled a golden amulet from beneath his robe, kissed it, touched it to his forehead, and placed it to his right ear, listened, and presently he restored the amulet to its hidden place and says, you're ordered to gather your luggage and accompany me to Arrakis. I'll just kind of put before we go on with that, but just who's talking? Who's giving him the orders, I wonder here? And I've maybe put, is it maybe Paul? Is it maybe Alia? But you're ordered to gather your luggage and accompany me to Arrakis, says the Quizara. And Mohiam says, but I have business elsewhere. And in that moment, I suppose we've got the two things here. A, she suspected guild perfidy, or B, to exposure through some transcendent power of the Emperor or his sister. So guild perfidy, guild treachery, if you like. Pardon me. So either the guild, where she's been kind of, well, I suppose this is back a bit in time, isn't it? from our initial suspicion of the guild, which is at the start of this chapter. So if it's not the guild, some kind of transcendent power of the emperor or his sister, that they can actually see what they're up to, I suppose. And so there's real doubt for her here, I think. Excuse me. Perhaps the steersman did not conceal the conspiracy after all. The abomination, Alia, certainly possessed the abilities of a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother. What happened when those powers were coupled with the forces which worked in her brother? I suppose at this point, we kind of have to ask, what is the difference between Paul and Alia? The real concern here, I think, for the conspiracy, pardon me, I don't think it's so much on Paul that they think that I think it's more about Alia as an unknown variable. And I suppose with Paul, he's a mentat, he's a Kwisatz Haderach, he has the male other memory and the female other memory. He has oracular prescience and oracular thoughts. With Alia, we have a Bene Gesserit abomination. Oh, sorry, I've written down male memory and female other memory. Shit is both of them, I think. Oracular prescience is both of them. And Alia, there's something more there. But it's a good question, I suppose. And really, ultimately, when we think about the term abomination, what does that mean? As we'll see later with the second in Ganima. So we get this at once. Snap the Quasar, and this kind of snaps us out of it and out of Mohiam's thoughts too. Everything in her cried out against setting foot once more on that accursed desert planet. All enough, when I was reading, I just wrote that this echoes Jessica's thoughts on Dune, and of course immediately after it says, well, here is where the Lady Jessica had turned against the sisterhood. Here was where they'd lost Paul Atreides, the Kwisatz Haderach they'd sought through long generations of careful breeding. And at once Mohiam agreed, we're told. There's little time when the Emperor commands all his subjects obey. We get some more of Mohiam's thoughts here. So the order had come from Paul, is what she deduces from this. She thought of protesting to the Highlanders' navigator commander, but the futility of such a gesture stopped her. After all, what could the guild do? Now, Mohiam says, the Emperor has said I must die if I set foot on Dune. So we're getting the source of her anxiety and consternation here. If she comes to Dune, if she comes to Arrakis, the Emperor has said she will die. She's being forced to go to this planet now by the Emperor himself. So it's, I suppose, the fear is probably quite real for Mohiam here. The Emperor has said, I must die if I set foot on Dune, making a last desperate effort. You spoke of this yourself. You're condemning me if you take me down there. The Quasar says, say no more, he ordered. The thing is ordained. And again, this kind of religious speech. Mohiam's thoughts here, that was how they always spoke. That was how they always spoke of imperial commands, she knew. Ordained. The holy ruler whose eyes could pierce the future had spoken. What must be, must be. He had seen it, had he not? Is that kind of fatalistic? Is there doubt here? And we get this sense of Paul's eyes being able to pierce the future. Mohiam, with the sick feeling that she was caught in a web of her own spinning, no spider there at all, she turned to obey. And we're told that the web had become a cell which Irulan could visit. She saw that Irulan had aged somewhat since their meeting on Wallach 9. New lines of worry spread for the corners of her eyes. Well, time to see if the sister of the Bene Gesserit could obey her vows. So that's our little flashback of Mohiam's arrest, if you like. And it seems to be that I think that she probably expects a degree of safety and of sanctuary on board a guild highliner. But Paul and his Quasar's reach extend there. You know, that's quite interesting. I suppose we get the question of who has betrayed her. I'll catch up with some of your comments, folks. Goodness gracious. We'll come up for air. Let's see. If Paul suspects that there are other oracles clouding about why does it? Well, that was sorry, I missed that. We've had that one again, haven't we? Sorry, Cynthia. And I got the impression that most Bene Gesserit didn't think very highly of Irulan. Why overthink it? Someone followed Irulan to their meeting and reported her presence. And Babs is saying, "Got to get on my bus. Y'all have a great weekend. Safe home, Babs. Same to you. Have a good weekend." Pardon me, and thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's a funny wee chapter, this, in terms of the dialogue and so on, the back and forth. But that's that little jump to the arrest, and it sort of gives us a bit of a viewpoint on it. And I think it also lets us know, really, we're getting a real sense of how unnerved Mohiam is, and that she's fearful. I think she's afraid here. And this unmanageable spasm of fear. And there is a kind of, the language in this chapter is quite different than the previous chapter, I suppose. Where we kind of got, I suppose, more the Atreides caution, curiosity, and a little bit of fear, I suppose, over this Gola. But I think these two, the language in the chapter here shows quite a degree of fear and anxiety, etc. And also that we get a sense of the hate that is coming from the Quizara. Now, let's see, where are we, folks? Yes, she's got this sick feeling that she was caught in a web of her own spinning. The web had become a cell. Let's see. Mohiam says, "I've had worse quarters. Do you come from the Emperor?" And she allowed her fingers to move as though in agitation. So there's two conversations on the go here. I suppose, and we get the verbal false conversation for a little bit, and then we'll switch to the finger conversation, the sign language. So we're told Irulan read the moving fingers, and her own fingers flashed as an answer as she spoke, saying, "No, I came as soon as I heard you were here." Mohiam says, "Won't the Emperor be angry?" The Reverend Mother asked. Again, her fingers moved, imperative, pressing, demanding. So small talk, basically, over whatever's really going on. And Irulan says, "Let him be angry. You were my teacher in the sisterhood, just as you were the teacher of his own mother. Does he think I will turn my back on you as she has done?" And we're told that Irulan's finger talk made excuses, begged. We wonder what's being said here, don't we? Because we don't know. We have a fair idea, though. I suppose we're going to get some of it confirmed for us here. So, Mohiam, we're told, the Reverend Mother's sighed, and on the surface it was the sigh of a prisoner bemoaning her fate. This kind of thing. But inwardly. So that I quite like this. Sorry, let me just move that ashtray out the way. It's puffing smoke in and around me there. As much as that's what it appears to be, here's what inwardly it means, I suppose, is that she felt the response to this sigh as a comment on Irulan. And as we said, here's a bit of an opinion. It was futile to hope that the Atreides Emperor's precious gene pattern could be preserved through this instrument. No matter her beauty, this princess was flawed. Under the veneer of sexual attraction lived a whining shrew, more interested in words than actions. Pardon me. Irulan was still a Bene Gesserit, though, and the sisterhood reserved certain techniques to use on some of its weaker vessels, and which, as insurance that vital instructions would be carried out. Now, this is all quite dodgy, I suppose, but it is quite important. First of all, um, Mohiam looks at Irulan as an instrument, um, a tool, basically. I mean, we've talked about human beings as tools within the Dune series, and that's been more to do with the Fremen, and I suppose how the Atreides look at the Fremen and how the Kynes family have looked at the Fremen. But here we have the Bene Gesserit, pretty much, and we know they're master manipulators. But you'd think, I suppose, that it would be possible that Irulan could have been a Bene Gesserit of quite high rank, but it doesn't seem to be the case. Futile, no chance at all to hope that an Atreides Emperor's precious genes could be preserved through this. The No matter how good looking she is, she's flawed. Underneath the veneer of sexual attraction lived a whining shrew more interested in words than actions. So that's quite telling. As I condemn her again, maybe for her literary aspirations. Irulan was still a Bene Gesserit, though, and the Sisterhood reserved certain techniques to use on some of its weaker vessels. So we'll have to assume that that includes Irulan, as an assurance that vital instructions would be carried out. So I've written, what is this? Is it brainwashing? Is it imprinting? This kind of thing. It's dodgy, no matter what it is. And yeah, basically the suggestion, I think, is that if Irulan doesn't wish to follow her orders, there's a suggestion here strongly, I think, I wonder if you agree with me, that it doesn't matter what she thinks, that they could say something here and just activate her and just do what you were told and she'll go do it. Under some kind of mental compunction or something like that, compulsion, know what you guys think, Cynthia's saying the certain techniques for weaker Bene Gesserit members harkens back to the word that Lady Margot implanted on Fade when she seduced him, and that Paul refused to take advantage of when he fought Fade. That's right. These kind of, it's a word that kind of didn't have a form or something like that, but it's there, and one word like this, and that's it. This guy will just seize up. Yeah, it's it's not very nice, I suppose. And I thought, just remembering getting into the wee details of the book again, I thought, oh, the Bene Gesserit really aren't that nice at all here, And once again, it's a very similar thing. We see another just individuals being used as tools, and it's I don't know that. We'll have a look, I suppose, at what's in store for Irulan in this chapter. But I think that it's kind of I think that she's been wasted, and it almost seems spiteful, or there's something about the decision that seems stupid and pointless, I think. Irulan's fingers. So we're switched into what's being really said in the sign language. I must have my chance, she pleaded. And Mohiam saying, "You've had your chance," Reverend Mother countered, and she was explicit in her instructions. So this immediately following on from, I suppose, the assurance that vital instructions would be carried out. And off she goes here. It basically runs with a question, followed by a whole series of statements, if you see what I mean. The question is, was the emperor angry with his concubine? And it's kind of almost a leading question, isn't it? That's the situation we want to have. And off she goes with running scenarios here, I suppose, possibilities of interaction. His unique powers must make him lonely. To whom could he speak in any hope of being understood? To the sister, obviously. She shared this loneliness. The depth of their communion must be exploited. Opportunities must be created to throw them together in privacy. Intimate encounters must be arranged. The possibility of eliminating the concubine must be explored. Grief dissolved traditional barriers. So just a range of statements. This is what we want. You create opportunities for basically Paul and Alia to get together. I suppose a wee while back I wonder why they haven't gone why they haven't wondered about breeding Paul and Alia, ultimately because of what we know of Leto and Ganova. But there we go. It didn't take them long to get there. I suppose that just about all of those awful lot of statements there. The possibility of eliminating the concubine. Was the emperor angry with his concubine? She doesn't name Chani once there, though that's who we're talking about. So the idea is just to get Paul to be angry. I think it's a bit naive of Gaius Helen Mohiam, to be honest with you. And I've written a little question here. If inbreeding is required for a Kwisatz Haderach, how many times have the Corrinos, Atreides, and Harkonnen already been inbred? Yeah, and I don't know, some of this doesn't really make sense in terms of wanting to preserve the Kwisatz Haderach, this kind of thing. I suppose we're going to get there with the negotiations, I think, but Irulan protested at this point. If Chani were killed, suspicion would fasten immediately upon the princess consort. Again, we have a person here being worried about blame. Besides, there were other problems. Chani had fastened upon an ancient Fremen diet, supposed to promote fertility, and the diet eliminated all opportunity for administering the contraceptive drugs. Lifting the suppressors would make Chani even more fertile. So this has been Irulan's sort of little side plan, hasn't it? I suppose here we get to see the response from Mohiam. But the response is that the Reverend Mother is outraged and concealed it with difficulty while her fingers flashed their demands. Why had this information not been conveyed at the beginning of their conversation? How could Irulan be that stupid? If Chani conceived and bore a son, the Emperor would declare the child his heir. And I've written next to this, what's the problem with that? I don't understand. Pardon me. So we're told Irulan protested. She understood the dangers, but the genes might not be totally lost. Mohiam's response is, damn such stupidity. The Reverend Mother raged. Who knew what suppressions and genetic entanglements Chani might introduce from her wild Fremen strain? The sisterhood must have only the pure line. And an heir would renew Paul's ambitions, spur him to new efforts in consolidating the empire. The conspiracy could not afford such a setback. Again, this makes me have a whole bunch of questions about this. Mohiam's clearly wrong, from what we know ultimately, I suppose. Who knows what suppressions and genetic entanglements Chani might introduce from her wild Fremen strain? Well, we know it's going to make the ultimate kind of Kwisatz Haderach, isn't it? It's going to create the God Emperor in Ganima. And if that's what's the problem with the wild strain, if you see what I mean? And I suppose, again, this kind of the sisterhood must have only the pure line. It kind of stinks of racial purity, this kind of thing, doesn't it? And a pure line, what is that? And especially when we're talking about inbreeding, and very, again, within the Harkonnens, the Corrinos, and the Atreides, there's, especially the size of this universe, there's a lot of them are cousins, aren't they? But I've just put, what does this mean? Is this a racial purity thing here within the Bene Gesserit? And I suppose the idea is if he had an heir, I don't know. I don't see how, Paul having a male heir in this kind of male-led feudal society would be any kind of problem to his succession, regardless of who he had the child with. I think the problems for him would come from, like the Emperor Shaddam IV, if he only had daughters. And of course, this is a thing that the Bene Gesserit can control. But Chani's not not a Bene Gesserit. So it just raises a lot of questions, It makes me wonder. Paul, what's that look like? A Habsburg? What's that specific genetic traits? That kind of thing. I don't know. That's how we look. Don't know much about them. No, a little bit, I suppose. But is that I don't suppose Wikipedia is going to give me something like that. There's an awful lot of them, though. Is that the ones that they don't have male line family tree? Is it that they don't have earlobes or something like that? I'm not too sure. Who am I thinking of? Pardon me. Maybe you could enlighten me a wee bit, Carlos. I should have looked like a Habsburg. I always think of the description of them. I still think there's a very good drawing of it's the Dune Messiah cover, is it? By that I can never remember the artist's name. I think I've put it up before, saying this is the one I think that Paul looks like the most, and it would be the cover to the French cover of Dune Messiah. I'm so bad. We discussed this guy's name quite a lot. It's a pity you can't get that cover over here in English, I suppose. Wojciech Sudmak. I don't know how to pronounce that gentleman's name, but that's who we were talking about. Wojciech Sudmak. Pardon me, we've had a chat about it before. Try Habsburg jaw. Right. No, I wonder who I'm thinking of. Is it the ones without the earlobes? I don't know. There's all sorts of little genetic traits, isn't there? Try the Habsburg jaw. Most royal families were Habsburgs at one time. Gotcha, thank you. So they say in chapter 1, Skytail and the Twi'leks created their Kwisatz Haderach with pure essences. Maybe this revelation spurred the Bene Gesserit to increase control over their pure essences, the inbred bloodline. No problems with it. Yeah. There's some things in this. I suppose it's later on we'll get to it, but there's some of the aspects about what the Bene Gesserit do with their breeding program that just seem a bit, why it doesn't quite make sense. And I suppose we put the answers that we're looking for is that they're kind of put down to the prescriptions left over from the Butlerian Jihad. But some of them just don't make sense. And certainly it's because they wouldn't require artificial intelligence, if you see what I mean. But pure questions, isn't it? It's just little things like the pure. What would be a pure line? And especially when you're talking about inbreeding, we really want to keep it in certain families. Really, here, I think Carlos says they believed incest was the game the whole family could enjoy. Yeah. Was it the famous joke about the aristocrats, isn't it? I know lots of people tell this joke, but it's a good one. Yeah. And we get lots of these sort of jokes like that in the UK about our royal family. I think I saw somebody do a video just on how much Prince Charles is in bread, and I think the answer was 10%. I thought it was quite funny. reminded me on Howard Quartz for some reason. Howard Quartz, his nickname's from he's a character from Roadbusters and Star-Lord in 2000 AD, but his nickname's Mr. 10%. That just made me think of King Charles III. By the way, if anybody's is it on Australia, happy Australia Day today. And yesterday was Birds Night here, and we didn't have any haggis, which is something we haven't done since COVID, which is gutting. So we must pick up, see if we can go down to a champion sausage maker around here, but must pick up a haggis and start getting into having a haggis on Birds Night. Miss that actually. Used to do it every year. It's just sort of a thing that we haven't done since COVID, But we were saying because we never got one yesterday, we'll have to nip down and get one this weekend, see if we can, sort of fit it in. I guess. No, where are we, folks? But yeah, we're not. Irulan's not being painted in a very good light here by the Reverend Mother Mohiam, and it's very much that she's like she's a tool for the sisterhood's use, and she's not a good enough tool. We're discarding her for another quick plan, and it doesn't seem to be a particularly well thought out one. Pardon me. But yeah, just questions of interbreeding, etc., etc. And it seems that now because Chani has come off this diet and onto this natural spice diet, that this, because of the poison or the contraceptive that Irulan's been slipping her, that this has made her even more fertile. And of course, this causes outrage. How could she be so stupid? Etc. etc. So, but really, what Mohiam sees going on is we want to renew Paul's ambitions. Or do they see him as stagnating here, and spur him to new efforts in consolidating the empire? Pardon me. It says the conspiracy could not afford such a setback, and again, why not? I was wondering. So we're told that defensively, Irulan wanted to know how she could have prevented Chani from trying this diet. How could I have done anything about this? Honestly. But the Reverend Mother, we're told, was in no mood for excuses. Irulan received explicit instructions on how to meet this new threat. If Chani conceived, an abortifact must be introduced into her food or drink. Either that or she must be killed. An heir to the throne from that source must be prevented at all costs. And again, I've just wondered why. And to be honest with you, it's kind of the way I would look at it is that you could breed Paul Atreides and Alia with just about anybody in this universe for a bit of new blood and hopefully get something, improved. The new genes would improve upon something. But we have that. Excuse me. We have, and it's one of those moments, I think, where you get to see behind the veneer of the character. As much as we talked about, and we know that Gaius Helen Mohiam's a powerful character in this book, in this series. But we've talked about behind the veneer of sexual attraction of Irulan. She's a shrew more interested in what's the veneer behind this kind of witch mystique of Mohiam, what's behind that veneer? Sorry, what's she really like, we see she's pretty. I think in this chapter we get to see her scared, we get to see her angry, fearful, and but still, acting, trying and acting kind of with manipulation at the very highest level. She's trying to affect, the Emperor's personal life here, and is proposing murder. Isn't proposing, and is basically probably going to make Irulan do this. And I've kind of written another wee thing. Does the Quinsant Sanheric have to be on the throne for the Bene Gesserit? And if so, why? It's probably, again, because it's their weapon and they wanted to control it. But Irulan says, again with the fingers. An abortifact would be as dangerous as an open attack on the concubine. Irulan objected. She trembled at the thought of trying to kill Chani. So again, this is trembling. Suppose that kind of echoes everybody trembling a little bit in the previous chapter, I suppose. Mohiam, was Irulan deterred by danger? The Reverend Mother wanted to know, her finger talk conveying deep scorn. And again, suppose Irulan kind of getting angry, signaled that she knew her value as an agent in the royal household. And lots of questions coming here, I suppose, compared to all the statements that Mohiam dropped recently there. Did the conspiracy wish to waste such a valuable agent? Seems so. Was she to be thrown away? Seems so. In what other way could they keep this close a watch on the Emperor? Probably a number of ways. Or had they introduced another agent into the household? Quite possibly. What was that it? Was she to be used now desperately and for the last time? Basically put, if she acts in this way, she'll be killed for it. And we have to assume it's something similar to maybe what Mohiam was going to do with young Paul Atreides way back at the beginning of Dune with the Gom Jabbar, that if she had killed Paul Atreides, she would probably accepted her own death there and then. But yeah, so all this going through Irulan's head, I'm a good resource. Why would you do this? And it is that the questions that she asks to kill Chani, it could be done by an assassin, if you see what I mean, by someone who would appear not to be connected. Why make the princess do that? And she, simply put, I think they don't want her getting pregnant now. They don't want her involved in any way, and they want to use her and use her up, basically. So sucks to be Irulan at the minute, I think. And as she said, using a poison, an abortifact, might as well put a big sign on me. I did that. And yeah, she's not happy about this. It's causing her to physically tremble. So here we get this little response from Mohiam. In a war, all values acquired new relationships. We're told the Reverend Mother encountered. The greatest peril was that House Atreides should secure itself with an imperial line. The sisterhood could not take such a risk. This went far beyond the danger to the Atreides genetic pattern. Let Paul anchor his family to the throne, and the sisterhood could look forward to centuries of disruption for its programs. So the greatest peril was that the House Atreides should secure itself with an imperial line. In other words, form a dynasty. The sisterhood could not take such a risk. Again, why really? It's probably to do with control of their programs, I think. And it went far beyond the danger to the Atreides genetic pattern. It's not just that. Let Paul anchor his family to the throne, and the sisterhood could look forward to centuries of disruption for its programs. So ultimately, their fears are pretty self-centered. It's all about their programs, really. And I suppose it's almost it seems to be kind of rigid thinking from Mohiam, doesn't it, in some ways? Can't say we fear what we don't understand. Irulan, that's good to read at that point. Irulan understood the argument, but she couldn't escape the thought that a decision had been made to spend the princess consort for something of great value. What, I wonder? Was there something she should know about the Gola? She ventured. Mohiam, we're told the Reverend Mother wanted to know if Irulan thought the sisterhood. So I quite like this. The Reverend Mother wanted to know if Irulan thought the sisterhood composed of fools. It's quite flippant, isn't it? When had they ever failed to tell Irulan all she should know? And again, that word "should," and as Irulan thinks here it was no answer, but an admission of concealment. Irulan saw it said she would be told no more than she needed to know. It's pretty much what Mohiam's just said to her. Do you think we're idiots? And when have we ever failed to tell you everything that you should know? So it's you're on a need to know basis kind of thing, and you don't really need to know that kind of thing. And I think Irulan's questions are reasonably insightful here. I suppose as much as she's being painted as a bit of a dummy, by Mohiam, I don't think she's that. I suppose that's Mohiam's opinion of her as a Bene Gesserit, but as a princess learning how to survive in the royal court, I think we see another side to her here. And she's not that daft, is she? Irulan says, how could they be certain the Gola was capable of destroying the Emperor? Mohiam replies, you could just as well have asked if Melange were capable of destruction. The Reverend Mother countered. For Irulan, it was a rebuke with a subtle message, Irulan realized. The Bene Gesserit whip that instructs informed her that she should have understood long ago this similarity between the spice and the Gola. So here we get this interesting comparison, I suppose, between the hate Gola and Melange. Melange was valuable, but it extracted a price: addiction. It added years to a life, decades for some, but it was still just another way to die. The Gola was something of deadly value. So, again, is the Gola addictive? What's its purpose? What price will it extract, I suppose? Mohiam says the obvious way to prevent an unwanted birth was to kill the prospective mother before conception. We're told the Reverend Mother signaled before returning to the attack. So it's just the way I'd usually write out my my little sort of scripting kind of things with this for dialogue and stuff. It's just the way that this, I suppose, the tenses within this, the way it's used, it doesn't quite flow. And I often read Mohiam says, etc. It's just because we're jumping around with that. So that's more to do with my little notes. I do apologize. Let me just bring something up here on the screen. There we go. Sorry about that. Now, pardon me. So the obvious way to prevent an unwanted birth is kill the prospective mother before conception. Kill Chani. And basically, this is the plan here, to kill Chani and use Irulan to do it. And Irulan says, of course, if you decide to spend a certain sum, get as much for it as you can. The Reverend Mother's eyes, dark blue with blue brilliance of her Melange addiction, stared up at Irulan, measuring, waiting, observing minutiae. And Irulan's thoughts here. She reads me clearly, Irulan thought with dismay. She trained me and observed me in that training. She knows I realize what decision has been taken here. She only observes now to see how I will take this knowledge. Well, I will take it as a Bene Gesserit and as a princess. Okay. How she's been taught, ? Is what I've written there. Irulan managed the smile, pulled herself erect, thought of the evocative opening passage of the litany against fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. And her thoughts here, when the calmness had returned, let them spend me. I will show them what a princess is worth. Perhaps I'll buy them more than they expected. And we're told after a few more empty vocalizations to bind off the interview, Irulan departed. When she'd gone, the Reverend Mother returned to her tarot cards, laying them out in the fire eddy pattern. Immediately, she got the Kwisatz Haderach of the major arcana, and the card lay coupled with the 8 of ships, the Sibyl hoodwinked and betrayed. There you go. I just did a wee quick. There we go. Wee quick sketch. They were not cards of good omen. They spoke of concealed resources for her enemies. She turned away from the cards, sat in agitation, wondering if Irulan might yet destroy them. There you go. It's a short little chapter. It's an interesting one, and it's it's a little bit tricky to make notes on, I thought, just with the tenses and this kind of two-way conversation, and that it has a little jump back in time, if you like, within it as well. A Sibyl, by the way. So the Sibyls, I'll just grab you some. Sibyls prophesied that holy sites. This is just off Wikipedia for you guys. A Sibyl at Delphi had been dated to early as the 11th century BC by Pausanias, when he described local traditions in his writings from the 2nd century AD. At first, there appears to have been one single Sibyl, but the 4th century BC, there appear to have been at least 3 more: Phrygian, Erythraean, and Hellespontine. By the 1st century BC, there are at least 10 Sibyls located in Greece, Italy, the Levant, and Asia Minor. So these are prophetesses and oracles in ancient Greece. And so very much the Sibyl in this case, I think, is the Reverend Mother herself, Oh, what does it say here? The English word Sibyl is from Middle English via the Old French Sibylle and the Latin Sibylla from the ancient Greek Sibylla. Varro derives the name from Aeolic Sibura, the equivalent of Attic Theobal, divine counsel. There you go. The etymology is not accepted in modern handbooks, which list the origin as unknown. Okay, that's interesting. There have been alternative proposals in 19th century philology suggesting Old Italic or Semitic derivation. First known writer to mention a Sibyl based on the testimony of Plutarch is Heraclitus. There you go. The Sibyl with frenzied mouth uttering things not to be laughed at, unadorned and unperfumed, yet reaches to 1,000 years with her voice by aid of the god. There we go. Oracles and Sibyls and so on and so forth. That's a pretty interesting one. The Delphic one's probably the most famous. Is the Pythian oracle. That's how I would usually refer to her, rather than Sibyl. But there you go. So a very interesting little chapter, folks. There we go. I'm going to grab some fluids here and have a wee light of me pop. If anybody's got any questions or comments for me, fire away. It's starting to get going, isn't it? As I said, I enjoyed the chapter 7 so much. I tore into the book, and I thought that was an interesting little back and forth one, and it really changes how we look at Irulan's position within the conspiracy. And I suppose the other question that we've got to ask here is, well, you've got Irulan's thoughts about, okay, you've trained, if you're going to spend me, let them spend me. I will show them what a princess is worth. Perhaps I'll buy them more than they expected. Get as much as you can, I suppose. Get as much for it as you can. But this kind of idea, the question I suppose we need to ask is has Irulan been compelled to think that way by Mohiam? Especially after we're told about, how the sisterhood deal with some of its weaker vessels, that it has insurance to make sure that they carry vital instructions out, this kind of thing. So it kind of sets up some questions about Irulan in terms of free will. And again, interesting. Again, we see contempt for Irulan's words, if you see what I mean, apart from it being described as a shrew. But it's not the first person to give. Paul's also, shown contempt. Is a whining shrew more interested in words than actions? And I think we get to see a good bit of character development with Irulan. And of course, Irulan's our major historian, So in some ways, we I don't know, it's a question of, do we get a sense of peril for her, knowing that she's yet to write her histories, if you see what I mean, that she must survive this. But yeah, very interesting back and forth between, I suppose almost the maiden and the crone here, if we want to think of archetypes, that kind of thing. And I suppose again the idea of this Dune tarot creeping in. And I think they've got everybody at it. I think if we got a sense of that from the previous chapter, that the Dune tarot is turning up all over Arrakis. And even an amateur oracle, I suppose, has the ability to muddy the waters. But there we go. Let me catch up with your comments, folks. Pardon me. I believed incest was the game the whole family could judge the Habsburgs. Yeah, I must have a wee nosy. I saw that you meant about the chin there. We fear what we don't understand, said Cars. Cynthia says, when Mohiam cautions about the Gola being an addiction, is she referring to the temptation to use the genetic manipulation of the Twi'leks as opposed to the traditional Bene Gesserit ways? I'm not sure. Let's have a look. Let me just see, where was that? Excuse me. That was it was the comparison between Melange, wasn't it, and the Gola. There we go. She could just as well have asked if Melange was capable of destruction. The Gola being an addiction, she's referring to the temptation to use the genetic manipulation of Twi'leks as opposed to the traditional Bene Gesserit way. The Gola was something of deadly value. Yeah, it's a kind of double-edged thing, isn't it? I think, Cynthia, it's the same way, I suppose, that the Bene Gesserit use spice. They've also used. They're the same. They're part of the conspiracy that's used this Gola, haven't they? They've sent this weapon in, and I think that there's some questions that we'll see maybe being asked about this. Temptation to use the genetic manipulation of the Twi'leks, even artificial insemination, I think, is even kind of, that's the thing. It's off the cards, isn't it? And I don't think that would violate the tenets of the Butlerian Jihad, as opposed to the traditional Bene Gesserit ways. I think there is temptation there. Yeah, it's a good point. I'm not 100% sure, Cynthia. But I think there's probably a double meaning to it. The other thing that I don't really get is why is I mean, as much as Irulan's maybe not done the job particularly well, why discard her in this manner? I think it doesn't really make sense. And well, I suppose the only really way it would make sense in that is that she's part of the conspiracy, and that if we're not going to use her, we should dispose of her so that she can't reveal anything else, and have her sort of take a major piece, if you like, for us, if you want to use a chess term, temptation. But yeah, I think I suppose we're at the point, Cynthia, where we wonder how much again does everybody know about the Bene Twi'leks? Because the temptation to use the genetic manipulation of the Twi'leks, for example, to breed, would involve the Ashlarl tanks. I pronounced it correctly. And whenever we find out what that is, I don't know. It's kind of, I'm trying to remember. It's me, as hi Doc. Hi, it's me. How's it going? Did you watch the second Dune movie trailers? I would like to speak to you about it. So disappointed. I caught a bit. Yeah, I was just scanning. Was it some 30-second trailers? I don't know. There's stuff there that just I know. I think we're really seeing Danny Villeneuve's Dune, and certainly not Frank Herbert's, But it's all about look at the shiny, isn't it? I don't know. I- I've kind of I am looking forward to seeing it. I suppose I think it'll once I get to see the whole thing, but I don't think I'm going to like it. To be honest with you, but I'm trying not to judge it. Trailers are a bit tricky to take these days anyway. You can see a bunch of stuff in a trailer and it's not even in the film. And George Miller, George Miller makes trailers, or whoever puts the trailers together for George Miller's films. His trailers are better than almost any films out there. That's quite cool. But yeah, there we go. Sorry, I'll catch up with the rest of the questions, folks. Chat away, or anybody's got any questions. It's a funny little chapter. It's quite short. There's quite a lot going on, and as I said, there's. Do we get the sense? I think is this the moment that Irulan will turn, or it's a hard thing to be told, right? We've decided that we want you to kill someone, and you're going to die, and off you go, do it. And for anybody to sort of go, yes, ma'am, will be quite daft, especially, and she's quite an important person, within the Empire to be disposed of this way. I don't, I'll show them. I think I get the sense that maybe Mohiam's kind of sussed her out a bit, but hasn't given her the trigger thing. Whatever it is, hasn't used the insurance to make sure that vital instructions would be carried out. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but it makes me think. It makes me a lot more sympathetic for Irulan here, I think. Even though she's been quite naughty up to this point, but she's intriguing, and I suppose that the last wee thing about this is that the tarot cards that go down, the Kwisatz Haderach, Paul himself, and representing Paul, I suppose, of the major arcana, and the card like coupled with the 8 of ships, the Sibyl hoodwinked and betrayed. Who is the Sibyl in this case? Very much, I think, the Oracle. This well, it could be any Oracle, really, couldn't it? But I think this is Mohiam, tricked, fooled, and betrayed, hoodwinked and betrayed. And I suppose a lot of just quickly, I suppose, to wrap up with what we point out in the language with Mohiam in this chapter, there's a lot of fear. It's fear, agitation, anger. I think first time we get to see. Well, no, I think we've seen her rattled a little bit before, but she's genuinely rattled here. But she again, she rallies pretty. We don't see her breaking down over it or going, "Woe is me," if you know what I mean. Though that's done for a bit of show. We get a sense that even as a prisoner, Mohiam's pretty dangerous. Which she is, I think. Yeah. Oh, I did. Sorry, it's me. Yes, I did. I've seen the short trailers that have landed within the last day there, I think. So I just sort of caught them, and I'll probably have to look at them again. But I think we're sort of seeing things that are going to be in the film that aren't in the book. I think we're going to see Gurney Halleck kill the Beast Raban and get his revenge, things like that. And I was, something that's me. I when things like that happen, I think I went while I was doing the notes for chapter 7. I had, was it called the Spice Diver Redux version of the David Lynch film. Let me just see, is that the right name for it? I'm a wee bit funny at remembering things like that. Spice Diver Edit, that's the one, isn't it? Everybody, we all talk about. 1984 Alternative Edition Redux Spice Diver Fan Edit. I had that in the background, and that cheered me up. It's really good. So if you're feeling a bit down on Dune, check that out. I think it's really good. But Carlos is saying, any ideas on why the Bene Gesserit refused to use artificial insemination techniques? No, that doesn't make any sense to me. If you see what I mean. And again, it kind of, I suppose it maybe makes me think a wee bit about the times when Frank Herbert was writing this. Let me see. Maybe make me think of things like, test tube babies and stuff. When was that? In vitro fertilization, I suppose, is what's coming up here. 1978, Louise Brown was the first child successfully born after her mother received IVF treatment, this kind of thing. Just, I suppose, it's where's the technology's at with this kind of thing when Frank's writing about it. Artificial insemination techniques at the same time being used kind of within selective breeding of animals and stuff, etc. I don't think it would be a thing that would be prescribed by the Butlerian Jihad, if you see. I mean, you're not going to need that big a tech to do that. I don't know. There's a thing about I suppose we're going to get into it. I suppose the more we find out about the Bene Gesserit's feelings on the matter. But there's some things that just don't make sense, and that I suppose we're going to get to the negotiations over Paul's seed, if you like, over his lineage, etc. With Mohiam. I kind of have to wonder how much of this of these things that they're forced to adhere to, the dogma that they have. And especially when the whole religious thing's kind of a front with them, but it seems that they're hobbling themselves in some way by refusing a technology that really shouldn't be refused, and that they want to keep it natural, this kind of thing. Yet there's and as Cynthia was saying, that there's temptation there. When Mohiam cautions about the Gola being an addiction, is she referring to the temptation to use the genetic manipulation of the Twi'leks as opposed to the traditional Bene Gesserit ways? It could well be, because that is a thing that she's going to consider, isn't it? And I think, is it ultimately, why do they? One of the reasons that they don't go with that is because of their sense of revulsion. Is that correct? Of the Twi'leks, who, as we get way, I was watching some of my PhD videos to kind of refresh my memory on some things lately. And of course, the thing about this kind of revulsion, everybody's kind of feelings towards the Twi'leks within the Dune universe is all because of an attitude, if you like, and a way of looking at the Twi'leks have put out there themselves, the vile Twi'leks, the dirty Twi'leks, the filthy Twi'leks. I don't know, it raises all sorts of questions. It's maybe he says the actors feel so not in place and they act so spontaneously, dramatically, and not only they quite act like people from 2024, not 20,000 years from now. And the shots look like there's one person close up in the center and everything around is blurred. Just look at the trailers. I didn't. The whole thing, when I went to see it in the cinema, the whole thing was blurred. It was really not a good experience. The finger language was a secret of the Atreides in Dune. Now it's treated as a Bene Gesserit staple. Imitation is a form of flattery. Why do they think that Paul's observers would not decode their gestures? That's the kind of thing I was wondering. Surely, if they've got her in this kind of cube, there's a guy that says surely that if they're aware that they're being monitored to the point where they're having a conversation, you'd expect to have just the way we think of Dune. You'd expect a camera on their lips, reading their lips. You'd expect a microphone in there. certainly that everybody seems to have a hidden language or battle languages or hand signals in particular. I'd say they'd be pretty busy with their hands. Yeah, why is it not recorded? I don't know that as much as we get a sense of a lot, particularly a lot of the characters being very, very much superhuman in a lot of senses, even like some Mohiam, and they are quite. They all have their flaws. And more often, as much as some of these characters seem more than human, I think it's often that it's their very human flaws that bring them down. You know, and we kind of get we've a sense of predestination about a fatalism about Mohiam here. That she feels herself as well. That she's been brought back when we see her being arrested. She's in trouble. She gets the strong sense that if she's on this planet, she'll not leave it. Sick feeling that she was caught in a web of her own spinning. And again, it kind of echoes that she's, the first step of avoiding a trap is being aware of the trap. This kind of thing, we have these reiterations within Dune Messiah, things that we've seen already in Dune, and even within this book. There are plans within plans within plans. There are traps that should be avoided that people are willingly stepping into. And we're told that this is a web of her own spinning. So in that sense, is she aware of the trap? Yes, because she's made it. If you see what I mean. The sick feeling, this kind of I've been caught in my own web. So but regardless of that, it seems that she's doomed in a sense. But regardless, that she goes on about her business, so she's still quite impressive, Mohiam, I think. But I think Irulan's not quite as subdued as you might think in front of her. Irulan gets angry, manages a smile at the end, this kind of thing, and even is able to get her calmness returning, etc. But Irulan does stand up to her in a way that speaks up for herself and tries to show her own value here. But we do get a sense from Mohiam that human beings are tools to be used, very much the same way that that would apply to the sisterhood. The sisters of the sisterhood are just tools to be used by us in pursuit of our plans, whatever they happen to be. And it would seem that the plans that the sisterhood are putting into place are only known to a very elite few within the sisterhood. We kind of get to explore that structure of the sisterhood, don't we, later on in the Bene Gesserit books to much greater detail. But at this point, it kind of almost seems that Mohiam's running the show, though we're going to see her want to send a message out to the sisters of Valak 9. No. But some of the things don't quite make sense, if you like, just the reasoning of why. And I suppose the one thing that does raise question was the one thing I was really curious about is what do we mean by the pure line? What's this? And really, this kind of sense of racial purity that Chani might introduce. Was it from her what genetic entanglements Chani might introduce from her wild Fremen strain? And the other thing is that Chani is her father is Kynes, is Liat Kynes, isn't he? So there's an imperial, family strain there. I kind of thought that's interesting. Why don't the Bene Gesserit know about that, or do they bother with that kind of family? I suppose we don't really find out much about the Kynes family other than their nature of their being planetologists, But there's a few wee things, and I suppose if we're being, how do we put it? As the epigraph starts the chapter, truth suffers from too much analysis. What's the truth? You know, and I suppose what is going on here? What is the truth? Will Irulan try and kill Chani? This kind of thing. Well, you know, I don't know what. Yeah, I don't know. I suppose we'll whenever we get to have a look at that negotiating chapter. I piled on. What's up next? Is that? Bear with me. Oh, is this the next chapter where Alia goes training? And we get yes, it is indeed. I suppose, and we get the Stilgar and Paul kind of thing, and it kind of almost seems like a situation that the Reverend Mother would want to have created here. You know, it's quite a bizarre set of little instructions that she gives, but with the initial question, a whole pile of statements. You've had your chance, the Reverend Mother encountered, and she was explicit in her instructions. Just after we're told this, Irulan was still a Bene, or just prior to this, Irulan was still a Bene Gesserit, though, and the sisterhood reserved certain techniques to use on some of its weaker vessels on an assurance that vital instructions would be carried out. So that's the set of instructions that follow that. And Irulan says, I must have, she was explicit in her instructions. So I don't know if this is that Irulan's still got some free will here, or that the instructions have been given. It's up. And I think that this is more likely that the instructions have been given and Mohiam's going to see if she'll do it or not. But I think there's the possibility that Mohiam could activate, if you like, for want of a better word, Irulan into must kill Chani mode. But it's all quite insidious, isn't it? The initial sentence there, was the Emperor angry with his concubine? It's a very kind of passive-aggressive kind of insinuating question, isn't it? And then the kind of justifications and what we want kind of follow that. His unique powers must make him lonely. To whom could he speak in any hope of being understood? The sister, obviously. To the sister, obviously. She shared this loneliness. The depth of their communion must be exploited. Opportunities must be created to throw them together in privacy. Intimate encounters must be arranged. The possibility of eliminating the concubine must be explored. Grief dissolved traditional barriers. So the added onus on that is that with Chani, if Chani is dead, that Paul is more likely to form a sexually intimate relationship with Alia. So yeah, this is quite a sort of nasty little plot, isn't it? That's not pleasant at all. And it'll basically just end up with Irulan dead, or Chani and Irulan dead, you know. Let's see, just to catch up. So yeah, it's maybe I don't know. I'll have to have another look at it, but yeah, I said wouldn't worry about it too much. I suppose, you know. These things, they're very stylized trailers, aren't they? These particularly Hollywood. Don't make trailers like they used to at all. No. Cynthia said regarding insemination, the Bene Gesserit wanted to an actual sexual union to preserve the psychology, yet the Tlilax speak of their pure essences of good and evil. Where is the psychology stored in the end? Preserve the psychology. The only other thing I could think of is that the actual sexual act. You know, why are they so insistent on it? You know, that if we go to sort of the idea of imprinting, that the possibly the sense that almost every woman in this universe, you get the sense could be a member of the Bene Gesserit. I don't know if that was kind of the reasoning for the ability to simply imprint or something like that. But they wanted to. Bene Gesserit wanted an actual sexual union to preserve the psychology. Yet the Tlilaxis speak of their pure essences of good and evil. Where is the psychology stored in the end? Oh, that's a very good question. I mean, I don't think it's one I can answer. The pure essences of the Twilight isn't their language of God, really, isn't it? In the genes, I think, But no, it gets tricky whenever it becomes these kind of things, and with, I suppose that includes the other memory and all sorts of things. Mimi says, what's with the clothing and the armor? The clothing is so cheap. The old movie nailed the clothing and still quite believable. Save me. The Padishah Emperor of the Carino Empire looks like a thug life. Sorry that I'm not here with you, but I'm quite mad. Not to worry, man. I don't know. I don't like to get my hopes up for things like that. If you see a property that you're quite into, a book or a film, or sorry, a book that's come along and somebody makes a movie out of it, it can be, sod's law how it does. Sod's law's the wrong law altogether, there, isn't it? But it's just random, isn't it? It's No, I was just thinking about films that actually kind of deliver on their ads in these days, and a lot of Hollywood films are very formulaic. And no, I don't know. I've got quite a few sort of things to say about the whole Dune thing. I think there's a lot of it looks like there's architecture on Arrakis that doesn't look out of place in Los Angeles of 2049. This kind of thing. I don't know. There's been a lot to kind of give it a visual kind of thing. I think I did a wee article about it a wee while back. I think it was just an open chat night, and I think the topic was that Denis Villeneuve's Dune was art's, what was it I called it? Art's revenge on intellect. I don't know what you think about that. It's me. But I think I thought certainly I don't think the Emperor's been cast correctly. I think that's entirely a nod to Christopher Walken having something to do with Dune, which is the Fatboy Slim tune, isn't it? Is it Weapons of Mass Destruction or something like that? And he's a great actor, but I was I kind of expected a kind of strong, powerful young Emperor. Pardon me, someone looks reasonably young. To see the effects of melange in society, because the Emperor's meant to be about. So I suppose maybe Christopher Walken's around the actual age of the Emperor, but the Emperor's meant to look like somebody in his early 30s, I think. Yeah. Saying that, I don't think he's been cast well. He's well played, I suppose, in the other versions of Dune, but I still don't think he's been cast well. But yeah. But I wouldn't worry. But when is it out? It's about a couple of months, isn't it? Is it coming out at the end of March or something like that? So, I don't know what you think, if you're all looking forward to it or not. My wife's not going to see part 2 with me. Part 1 was enough. She was not amused, I'm afraid. I think the last time I took her to a cinema, I think to see a science fiction film, it was Prometheus, which I think was written by one of the same writers as Dune, and she hated it, and so did I, actually. It's quite funny though. So no, I was thinking about starting to talk a wee bit about some science fiction films and stuff that we're watching during the week as well. But we managed to get my wife to watch. What was the one last night? Enemy Mine. I don't know if anybody's seen it. It's quite an old one, isn't it? These days, it must be 1985 or 86. That I think. It's Wolfgang Peterson film with who's in it? Louis Gossett Jr. and Dennis Quaid. It's quite good. I haven't seen it in many years. It's kind of almost like an update on Robinson Crusoe on Mars, that kind of thing. Quite funny. Wife's enjoying Stargate, as we were saying at the minute, but she considers science fiction a period dramas. I think is what she called it. Instead in the future, this kind of thing. But I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's me. I didn't think the armor of anyone kind of looked right in the film at all. There are things that look. I thought that they'd run it. I thought the shields, that the amount of space that they have in the shields, I thought they'd run out of air real fast. Um, you know, there's just things about the look and feel of Dune, and I didn't like the ornithopters at all because they weren't ornithopters. Hmm. But let's see. So maybe it says Prometheus tried to change Geiger's conception. I can hate Prometheus only for the still have a life. I thought it was awful. I really did. Um, yeah, there was the scene in particular. I think is it was it Naomi Rapace was the actress. I think I'm not sure, but the whole basically do it yourself. I don't know what you call it, Medidoc kind of assisted abortion of the alien. Well, we watched that at the cinema and couldn't help it. We just burst out laughing. We're just hysterical. Just couldn't take it seriously at all. Um, you know, and hmm, I don't know. I think there's an Alien TV series coming soon, isn't there? What's the other wee thing I was watching at the moment? I don't know if anybody's caught it. Is Delicious in Dungeons on Netflix. It was quite good. I was enjoying that. If anybody's into those kind of Japanese cooking shows with meets Dungeons and Dragons, it's very funny. I have to say. So, don't know if it's anybody's cup of tea, but it's quite harmless and silly. I think I was enjoying that. Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, the other thing I just to let you know, I suppose, because I was pushing on with June Messiah, and hopefully, by the way, we'll be back on, if not the Thursday, then the Friday with our next chapter. I don't think it's too long either. That was quite a wee, sort of short one. Um, hmm. But once I finish this, pardon me, I was saying I'm kind of reading away with the Arabian Nights at the minute, which is kind of uh, I don't know. It's kind of lending color to reading June Messiah, especially sort of scenes in Arakeen and stuff like that. I'm just kind of thinking of you know I'm reading the story of was it Hassan of Basra at the minute, for example, and just thinking about Baghdad and Basra and places like this in the Arabian Nights. The kind of overlay of the stories from that's kind of fitting into my head as I'm kind of reading about June Messiah and Arrakis and Arakeen and so on. It's kind of interesting. I'm kind of visualizing Arrakis and the Fremen and the Pilgrims and the Quasar all in a slightly different way. Um, I think it's definitely influenced by the Arabian Nights. I think it's kind of interesting. But yeah, I'd mentioned hopefully once I get June Messiah read, I'll still be doing a chapter of it every week with the book club. But I'm hoping to read Beautiful Star was the book little book I picked up with a book token. But another said book with book token the other day. Still can't get the book that I'm after, but I've never read this. So it'll be a couple of books away, but I'm hoping to check it out quite soon. Is Octavia Butler's Kindred, which I'm looking forward to. It's a highly thought of novel, which I haven't ever got a chance to read yet. So this will be my first. In fact, well, we've talked about this. I've read a Yukio Mishima story before, but I had no idea at all that he'd read science. Or sorry, that he wrote science fiction. So this will be the first sci-fi book by him that I've ever read from Japan, and this will be the first one by Octavia Butler from America that I've read. So look, two authors who are pretty much new to me, though I know a bit about them, and looking forward to that actually. Certainly a lot of good praise for this book. But the BBC's praise here is just a must-read novel. Fantastic. Whereas everyone else has a reasonable amount to say about it. But I know the one that I would say that I would pay attention to is just by Harlan Ellison says that Kindred is that rare magical artifact the novel one returns to again and again. Pardon me. So looking forward to that. But it's a bit of a time travel book there. This one's more of all your family are aliens from different planets. So something on the horizon just to read. Where do we go? That's Mimi says, I quite like the old sci-fi movies. They have the best suspension of disbelief. Last book I just bought is the Meta Barons visual novel comics. Meta Barons. Yes, I know that one. Yeah, I haven't read it myself. The Meta Barons series was written by creator Alejandro Jodorowsky and illustrated by Argentinian artist Juan Jimenez. Yeah, I've seen it. It's on my radar, I suppose. Never got round to getting it or reading it. Haven't been near a comic shop in ages, actually. So I should just order things online, but it's nice to go up and have a nosy around something like Forbidden Planet. Pardon me. The ones that I had seen recently was the Lone Wolf and Cub books have been released in a larger sized omnibus edition. But I sort of saw one of them, and I don't know if they were kind of being picked up, if it would have been easy to get them. I have pretty much most of them, and they're very small Dark Horse graphic novels. Saying that, they're about 300 or 400 pages each, and there's 28 of them, and I kind of wanted to get those again. I would really fancy reading through Lone Wolf and Cub again. I like the art and originality. Yeah. Yes, I bought the Meta Barons Humanoid's 40th anniversary edition. Excellent, yeah. Wouldn't mind checking out something like that. I know Juan Jimenez's art. I really like it. Just from things like heavy metal Huron, heavy metal, that kind of thing. But there we go, folks. Yeah. 10 to 11. I'll hang around for a few more minutes if you like. Wrap up things about 11 o'clock. But yeah, that's a good one. Oddly enough, it's me. And a lot of books that got lost or destroyed. Very sadly, a whole bunch of years ago, I suppose which includes some graphic novels and so on. So again, there's kind of books that I'm always looking to replace. But just because I would just genuinely like to read them again, But I said I'm missing about 7 or 8 of my Lone Wolf and Cubs. What have we got? So this place is not that tidy at the moment. Figure out. Well, a whole bunch of, I don't know if there's anything in particular, graphic novel wise. The sort of ones that I got the Zenith ones, I suppose. Pardon me, the only kind of big collection ones, and then Sin City's up there somewhere. Oh, I can't do that. That way, there it is. Which I quite enjoyed a long time ago. But yeah, I haven't really got a good graphic novel in a while. But my son got me a couple of collected Judge Dredds recently, which were from the time that I stopped reading 2000 AD and Judge Dredd, and it was kind of interesting because some of them were okay, and then it kind of hit the ones that actually kind of killed 2000 AD and Judge Dredd for me, and it was a good reminder of why, I suppose. But there's a couple of things I wouldn't mind getting. I used to have things like The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen and V for Vendetta, and all of those are gone. I've lost all of those. Goodness, I used to have quite a few Titan books as well, the 2000 AD ones. I have a fair few of them left, but I lost quite a few, including some sort of Judge Dredd annuals and stuff like that. And I used to have a little bit of some was it Madman and Hellboy from a long time ago. But yeah, no, there's quite a few sort of graphic novels actually. Just thinking about it, that I wouldn't mind having a look at, But I might actually get a bit cheeky about it and maybe just go down to the library at some point and see what they have, But I don't know if anybody ever read Gone. was a long time ago when I was a kid. Read Gaunt's just a silent kind of. He's a little dragon, gold dragon guy, and the graphic novel was almost like a big phone book. And that was a fantastic thing. I really wanted to read that again at some point. The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, Swamp Thing, and the Preacher. I read Preacher a long time ago, and I used to have a lot of 2000. Well, I had 2000 of these every week. Sorry, since I was about 4 years of age. But a couple of years ago, I gave them all to a student, and I figured I'd read them enough. You know what I mean? And a few Star Lords and things like that as well. And a few Eagles. I think I used to read Eagle as well. But yeah, I've also lost about 4 or 5 of the Sandman books. I think I have 5 or 6 of them. There they are. There's one of them. Anyway, there's the Wake. Let me see. That's the book on myths and stuff. Nemesis the Warlock, first 4 books. And I got some Daily Dreads were quite good. But yeah, I haven't bought many graphic novels in ages, And I each time I get up to Forbidden Planet to have a look around, there's just so much. But the best ones I think ever that I've read, highest recommendations, the Lone Wolf and Cub books, which we talk a wee bit about occasionally, but let me see what they do. There, they'll show you all. Oh, I forgot about that. There you go. These are the ones I have. So I'm missing a bunch of these somewhere in the middle. You can see the size of them, I suppose. There's my little tiny hands in comparison. This is Lone Wolf and Cub, Volume 1. Cover illustrations by Frank Miller and Lynn Varley for most of these, but this is by Kazuo Koike and Goseki Kojima, if I'm pronouncing those right. This one alone, for example, the first one here is 303 pages. And I suppose with my eyesight, let me see, I've got these are office glasses, but I'm having bothered. But this is the level of detail in them here, and they're incredible. And probably one of my favorite literary things of all time. I'd happily make a video about these and gush about them. But there's also I forgot about these. I've only got the third one here. I also did this one here, Samurai Executioner, but that's the only one I've ever read of those, which was quite good. And again, I think these are from Dark Horse Comics. Again, that's 300. So for Lone Wolf and Cub, there's 28 of these. Each one about 300 to 400 pages. It's epic. Yeah, it's incredible. I consider it probably one of Japan's finest sort of cultural artifacts. But in terms of ladies behave, in terms of manga, that kind of thing, I think it's a really good quality. Yeah, it's an incredible thing. So the omnibuses that have come out at the minute are, I suppose, I think there's 3 or 4 of these, and they're about that big. I suppose a little bit bigger, maybe. A good chunky book. So they're a bit bigger. The images are a bit bigger, and you can. And so is the the writing. I suppose very small now. Looking at these, but they're very dinky and very nice. And you can easily carry one of these about with you in your pocket. But the action, the illustration, the story is incredible. And at the end of each one is a glossary, giving you sort of all sorts of ideas of all the sort of info that you would need, very much the way Dune would do. If you see what I mean about Edo period Japan and what's going on in this book, it's excellent. There's a wee thing called the Ronin Report at the end of each one here as well, sort of discussing. But absolutely tip-top stuff, But that would be nice. It's I would happily replace the ones that I've got missing, but it's becoming an eyesight problem, But yeah, Sandman's quite complex and deep. I do like Sandman. I read it when I was at school. I suppose it went on for a few years after that, but I got into it then. I suppose the Season of Mists was the one that I really got into and enjoyed. I don't have it anymore, but I do have about 5 or 6 of them. Oddly enough, I've got a student doing Shakespeare at the minute, so we lent her Dream County the other day with the Midsummer Night's Dream. Or was it? Wasn't it? Yeah, Midsummer Night's Dream, that one. Just we're having a little bit of chat about Shakespeare, etc. But yeah, it works on a lot of works with some different mythologies, if you like, to create the idea of 7 endless beings. It's quite good. I have to say, I quite enjoyed the Sandman TV series when it was on recently, and I really enjoyed the Tale of the Cats, if you like. That one was animated. I thought that was excellent. Japan manga is good. I have one favorite classic manga. They just released the deluxe hardcover edition. It's the Berserk manga. I've seen it. They've got a few of them down in the shop in town there, and I haven't read them, but I've seen them. I hear they're pretty good. It's kind of one of those where I would need to start at the beginning. But yeah. It's just in Dungeon. What was it? I quite enjoyed the Way of the House Husband. I got my son a manga, Way of the House Husband, there for Christmas. There's a TV series and an anime as well at the minute. It's very good. But yeah, Berserk's one I wouldn't mind checking out. I have to say. And the Meta Barons. But yeah, I kind of, whenever I stopped reading 2000 AD, pardon me, I hadn't really seen much, I suppose. As I said, I lost a lot of books. I used to have things like Tales of Luther Arkwright here. I've still got a book by Brian Talbot called The Tale of One Bad Rat, which is quite good. It's a bit harrowing, I suppose. Some Judge Dredd and stuff like that. Some Judge Anderson, but yeah, mostly 2000 AD stuff, folks. And I think got some Animal Man over there somewhere. But yeah, Zenith would be one of my favorites as well. That's a good one. Got anything else there? No, not really. That's that. No, that's not what I thought it was at all. But yeah, if anybody's not read these, hang on. If you want a good antidote to Marvel and DC comics, superhero comics and stuff, I highly recommend these. I think 2000 AD is releasing all sorts of kind of funky, fancy editions these days. Season 1, there you go, Zenith. Is a 2000, but it's 4 volumes for the whole thing. That's if you like Cthulhu, this kind of thing. It's very good. Kind of pop bubblegum superhero meets Cthulhu, kind of World War II Nazis, psychedelia. It's excellent. One of the best things that come out of 2000 AD, I think. And Jesus, Grant Morrison, Steve Ewell. Some of it black and white, some of it in color. But it's really, really good. Yeah, would highly recommend that to anyone. I suppose that's a lot of them there. I suppose not too, or something like Halo Jones. But yeah, nothing new in ages. I must go and buy something new sometime. Have a good look. But you're right. I suppose the amount of manga that's available in places like Forbidden Planet, it's whole islands of it now. I don't really know too much of it, but definitely would miss the days of going into a comic book shop and just sort of reading and stuff like that, having a flick. With too much tragedy in it. Berserk is dark fantasy horror manga with too much tragedy and struggling. I don't know. I'd have to sort of get my head into comic book mode and have a think about some older stuff, And I remember I used to have these books about this. I think they were a Belgian comic. For the life of me, I can't remember who or what it was called. I think it was like So-Called Canard, So-Called Canardo, something like that. Kind of like this kind of sort of Marlowe-esque duck detective with a dodgy liver and a broken heart. This kind of, I don't know, it's kind of very noirish. Some of the European comics used to read and things like that, But yeah, I haven't. Nothing's really gripped me in terms of that world in a while. But it's not because there isn't any good stuff there. It's just because I haven't been looking really. But yeah. Yeah, I suppose the other thing is the cost of books at the minute. I tend to just grab something with a graphic, with a book token or something like that. Occasionally pick up the Aubrey thing. Let's see. There it is. I got this a wee while back. Is the graphic novel of A Scanner Darkly from the Richard Linklater film, which I quite enjoyed, I have to say. I suppose it's pretty much a graphic novel lifted from the kind of rotoscoping from the film, if you see what I mean. But yeah, there you go. That's quite a nice little sort of presentation. I quite like that. It's a good sort of accompaniment. It has the very famous kind of last page from the book as well, from A Scanner Darkly, But no, I haven't. Apart from that, I haven't picked up anything graphic novel ages, more likely to sort of chase low motion comics. But I kind of got rid of a lot of comic books recently, kind of just to get rid of clutter and stuff, and I'd read them enough, I think, which is a real shame. But I've a kind of hankering for some of the old 2000 AD stuff, just the classic stuff to read. But might pick up the odd graphic novel there. But no, I'll have to keep my eyes open, folks, But yeah, something that's not too heavy would be something good. Something that's a good laugh would be interesting, Well, listen, folks, thank you very much for joining me for Chapter 7 of our Dune Messiah book club. Hopefully we'll be back on Thursday with Chapter 8, and if not, maybe the Friday. But I'd say we'll be back to Thursday as normal. Also, we just had a bit of happenings here with the weather here. We've had a very stormy few days, and we've got a leak in our roof, which is woe is me. As much as we were sort of ready to go with the work yesterday, myself and my wife didn't really sleep the night before because of it. So I was absolutely shattered last night. So I just thought better to go with it today, folks. But it's a funny little, just the way the language works, the tenses back and forth between Irulan and the Reverend Mother. A funny little chapter, But there we go. But yeah, that's what I've been up to. Reading a bit more of Dune Messiah. I'm looking forward to getting into some new science fiction, checking out some old sci-fi films with the wife at the minute. So we got Enemy Mine watched last night, which I quite enjoyed. Haven't seen God knows how many years, at least about 20 years. So I'm trying to dig old ones out, and I've dug out Hardware by Richard Stanley, which I'm looking forward to. Which is a film that's I don't know if anybody's seen this one, but it's a cracking wee sort of science fiction horror, and it's based on a 2000 AD. Well, it's a Judge Dredd story, I think, called Shock, which has appeared in I think it was one of the two, either a 2000 AD or Judge Dredd Christmas Annual, and rather nicely, the DVD that I have has a little reproduction. Well, there's a little booklet about the film, but it has a little reproduction of the comic book in it as well. So I'm hoping to watch that maybe within the next night or two. And not say what day, but over the next few days, it'll be the son's 21st birthday. So I'm going to say a little happy birthday to him from tonight, and we're hopefully having a little bit of crack with him over the weekend and so on. So listen, folks. That'll do, I have to say. Thanks very much for joining me tonight. It's the weekend. I hope you all enjoy yourselves. I hope you're keeping safe no matter where you are. Look after yourselves. And hopefully we'll see you within a week's time for our next exciting chapter of Dune Messiah. So I'll say all the very best to you, and good night. Look after yourselves and take care. Good night, folks. It's Mimi says, see you, Doc. See you later, folks. Take it easy now. Bye-bye. Do, 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 bye.